tonight is this person asked me about ayahuasca. So just straight up, I'm being a lot more open and honest about this stuff lately. I think psychedelics are fantastic. I think they're amazing. I think you should all do them. Just kidding, everybody. Just kidding. I'm not a doctor. That's not medical advice. I would never suggest that you do something that's illegal, right? That was a joke. But no, seriously, get on Amazon, watch a movie like Neurons to Nirvana. You get on Amazon Prime and watch Neurons to Nirvana. That's a great place to start. You can pick up Michael Pollan's book, How to Change Your Mind. Fantastic book, all about psychedelics. MDMA and psilocybin, which is the main ingredient in magic mushrooms, are both in stage 3 clinical trials for the treatment of PTSD in soldiers, for the treatment of drug-resistant depression, for the treatment of addiction. Psilocybin is incredibly powerful for addiction. People don't know that the founder of AA was a firm believer that LSD, acid, should be part of the protocol in AA. And all the other people involved in AA were like, well, we can't do that because we're telling people to get off drugs. He's like, this is not a drug. Psychedelics are not drugs, right? Psychedelics are not recreational drugs. Trust me. You want to go do a big heroic dose of mushrooms and then come back tomorrow and try again? No way, no how. You're not going to do it, okay? So I know this is still taboo for a lot of people, and it seems funny and it seems like I'm being silly or whatever, but I'm telling you, I would tell you that probably, I bet you over 50% of my personal development work over the last 7 years, I could attribute directly to psychedelics. Now, psychedelics with integration, because I'm big on journaling. Anytime I have an experience, I will take days and days to journal about that experience, really integrate it, really let that be a part of my life. I have never taken psychedelics recreationally, ever. I cannot even fathom taking psychedelics and going to a concert or some bullshit. That's not what these are for, okay? These are literally medicinal plants that were provided for us by whomever you believe in, and they're unbelievable, right? Absolutely unbelievable. Tim Ferriss has invested $2 million of his own money for a center in Europe, I believe, that is treating drug-resistant depression. So SSRIs don't work. Why? Because SSRIs are bullshit, and depression is not a chemical imbalance in the brain. There's no clinical data on planet Earth that says that. People still try to argue with me on this all the time. It's a chemical imbalance in the brain. Show me the science that says that. It doesn't exist. I promise you. I do this. This is what I do every day. It doesn't exist, right? So psychedelics are the next frontier, I promise you. Now, the problem is pharmaceutical companies are going to come in and steal the show. Absolutely. They're going to completely mess this up. And that's the issue with things going legal in America, is America's one of the most corrupt countries in the world, honestly. What's going to happen is they're going to go legal and mainstream, and then you're going to need insurance. You're going to need a prescription to get them. They're going to be astronomically expensive. It's going to be a nightmare. But anyway, that's just the way things go. It's not so bad because it's going to give people, access to it for sure. So let's talk about ayahuasca. The best thing I can do here, I'll just kind of walk you through the story. So I researched psychedelics for 1.5 years, about a year and a half before I ever decided to do any. And I have had zero experience with psychedelics. I tried alcohol and weed as a teenager and in my 20s or whatever. I hate weed. I really don't like weed. Don't like how it makes me feel. I never really did. I just never really liked it. So needless to say, I was completely inexperienced with psychedelics, but I did a lot of research and then eventually found myself going to do ayahuasca. Now, to give you an example of what ayahuasca is, I basically decided to climb Mount Everest when I had never even been hiking. That's the best analogy I could say. I'd never put on hiking shoes, never walked a trail, and decided to climb Mount Everest. That's what I did. So I don't recommend that everybody do that, but I'm just that type of person. I've always been attracted to that. So basically, anytime I've ever explored psychedelics, I have really only done what is called heroic doses. You can Google heroic doses if you would like, HEROIC, heroic doses of psychedelics. Terence McKenna's heroic dose of psilocybin mushrooms I have done. And yeah, it's you are signing a contract that you'll never be the same person. It really does need to be taken seriously, because I believe that to be true. I think you're signing a contract that you'll never be the same person again. And I'm totally cool with that, right? It has only made me grow in ways I couldn't even imagine prior to doing this. So ayahuasca, I went to see one of the most famous shamans living. His name is Don Howard. Don Howard has become even more famous because he's Aubrey Marcus's shaman. So I went and did ayahuasca where Aubrey Marcus did. And so the next thing I knew, I was on a plane to Lima, Peru. I went to Houston, Texas, flew to Lima, Peru, flew from Lima, Peru to Iquitos, Peru, got on a riverboat, took a riverboat down the Amazon River for 2 hours, and arrived at a sanctuary with 22 strangers who I had never met. And I lived there for 8 days and did 4 different ceremonies of ayahuasca. Now, this was life-changing just because of all those things I just said, right? So you have all these 22 strangers from all around the world, all from different countries, and you're living in a sanctuary where there's no cell phone, no Wi-Fi. They had emergency Wi-Fi service for emergency situations. So no cell phone, no Wi-Fi, nothing but like hammocks. So literally you do a ceremony, then you have a whole day, whole night off, whole next day, then you do another ceremony. There's a ceremony every other night. The rest of the time, I swam in the Amazon River. I hung out with local tribes, played with little kids and, tribes people, and had monkeys climb on my head and held snakes and did all sorts of crazy stuff. But most of the time I laid around in hammocks and journaled about what I saw while using these psychedelics. So the most important part about psychedelics is integration. Integration is everything. You don't just get all the answers during a vision and then just you're fixed. No, you have to integrate. You have to do the work. I actually recommend that everybody see a therapist. Seeing a traditional therapist is huge for me. I've seen a traditional therapist once a week for over 2.5 years now. And she knows about my psychedelic experiences and we talk about them. Anytime I have an experience, I go and talk to the therapist about it. This is a multifaceted thing. Guys, self-growth is work, right? You got it. I mean, it's so silly. People just sit around and wallow in self-pity and want things to be different and don't do anything. Like, I work on self-growth every day. I journal every single day. I'm doing an inner child workbook right now. So I work in this workbook every day. Still, psychedelics are a part of my life, and traditional therapy once a week is part of my life. This is all big stuff. So with ayahuasca, anyway, I end up there. I'm in the jungle. I'm there for 8 full days. And I actually did use, after these trips, I did use Wi-Fi. I asked for the emergency Wi-Fi once to call my parents crying and tell them how much I love them. I just had to. I was like, no, this is an emergency situation. I need them to know how much I love them right now in case I don't come back from Peru or whatever, right? Like, I just needed them to know. It was really, really important, right? So what happened for me is, like, I listen to too much. So be careful with podcasts, right? Because there are guys like Aubrey Marcus who go on podcasts and will just walk you through their entire, this is what I saw and I rode a dragon and I blah, 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 blah. Don't listen to that shit, right? Because then you're going to get it in your head and you're going to think that you need to see all this crazy stuff or whatever. That's what I went into. I went with a bunch of other people's stories in my head, and my intention went in just like, yes, I'm going to have crazy visuals and get all these answers, right? So I went in the first 3 ceremonies, I had no visuals at all, maybe some colors, and that was about it. So I'm sitting there with an eye mask on, drank heroic amounts of ayahuasca, and nothing's happening. And the next day, these talking circles, people are talking about all the stuff that they saw, and people are purging. You have buckets for vomit, so people are purging. You hear purging all around you, and some people are crying, and you're all in the same room. It's crazy. And then there's shamans around you, and they're blowing smoke, and they're doing ikaros, like singing to you, and they're shaking these shakers, and there's jaguar skulls around. It's crazy madness, right? Really cool. And what's happening is all these people are going through childhood trauma. They say that one night of ayahuasca is the equivalent of 40 years of traditional therapy. I actually do believe that to be true now because of experiences I've had other than this first one. The first one was kind of weird for me because I had no idea what I was in for. I wish I would have like smoked DMT or something prior to doing ayahuasca, so I would have at least known where I was going, like what this other dimension feels like, right? I know this is getting crazy woo-woo. Let's just go into this. Why not? So the first 3 nights I drank all this ayahuasca, nothing happened at all. No purging, no visions, no nothing. Now, it was very deep meditation for sure, and I was journaling. So I'm journaling, like, oh my God, I'm not getting anything out of this, blah, 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 blah. So the 4th night comes, and the 4th ceremony comes, and I talk to Don Howard, and I say, listen, man, something's like wrong with me because I'm like not having any visuals. And he's like, no, not having any visuals is perfectly normal. But now keep in mind, this is a famous shaman. He's been interviewed on CNN. He's been on podcasts. He's one of the most famous in the world, doing this for 50 years. And he called me an actual anomaly. He said, you're an anomaly. And here's why you're an anomaly, because I've never seen anybody drink as much ayahuasca as you have over the last several days and not purge at all, meaning no vomiting, no diarrhea, none whatsoever, no purging. So my body was like a sponge for ayahuasca. Now, what's really funny is ayahuasca can actually work really well for injuries. People that go there with like these debilitating injuries, sometimes even real serious medical conditions. And I'm not going to get into that because I don't want to talk about medical stuff, but these things that are kind of miraculously getting better, right? So my body seemed to be like a sponge for ayahuasca. So for this reason, he agreed to give me like basically 4 times a normal dose on that last night. So I took like 4 times a normal dose, drank 2 giant cups of ayahuasca, waited about 3 hours meditating, and nothing happened. So I got pissed off and I just went to bed. It's like, screw this. So I lay down in bed. I'm in bed for 5 minutes. I wake up. Go to the bathroom. Bleh, tiny little purge, like just a bleh, right? And the next thing I knew, I was like blasted into different dimensions for like the next 11 hours. It was unbelievable. I mean, white knuckle on my bed, like, "Ah!" And then I woke up. And then the next thing I knew, I was like blasted into different dimensions for like the next 11 hours. It was unbelievable. I mean, white knuckle on my bed, like, "Ah!" And then the next thing I knew, I was like blasted into different dimensions for like the next 11 hours. It was unbelievable. I mean, white knuckle on my bed, like, "Ah!" what's happening, right? And I won't tell you like all the craziness or go into like exactly what I saw and stuff. Saw my whole family. I saw childhood stuff. A lot of crazy stuff went up, but I'm not going to walk you through the details. It was insane. It was insane. Like the one thing I always tell people, and I just leave you, I'm going to leave you with this as a cliffhanger, is like I met Jesus Christ, right? Face to face, like an actual person. Like, oh, okay, you're here. Wow, what's up? You know. So on the back end of this, so the next day in the talking circle, everyone's like cheering. They're like, Justin, I had visions. Oh, this is crazy. You got visuals. This is awesome, right? So we go through the whole thing. I go back home, and I still stay in touch with a lot of those people. They're one of my best friends in the world. Christian is in Norway, and that's how we met. We met on that trip. I'd never known him before then. One of my other really good buddies, Dustin, I met him on that trip. There's a bunch of people that I still stay in touch with. I made like lifelong bonds with these people. So just being away from cell phone service and Wi-Fi and everything for that long was amazing. Laying around in hammocks, journaling. But here's the thing. I was wrong about not having visions. I was wrong about not getting anything out of those ceremonies. What had happened was I had basically the deepest meditations of my life. And now that I know what those other realms feel like, I know how these things communicate with you. Like, for example, you'll have these thoughts that you've never had before that you think are your thoughts, but it's almost like telepathy. It's like something is communicating with you, right? I had all these crazy thoughts during these experiences and was journaling about them. And the next thing I know, I got home and I'm reviewing the journaling and I'm like, oh, okay. I literally just explored my entire life, all of the issues in my life. I'm going through this journal on the plane ride home and I'm like, everything's awesome. Like life is awesome. I know exactly what to do. Like work-life balance, all this crazy stuff that I was looking into. So I got home and what happened was all the things that seemed very difficult were now suddenly very easy. Like for instance, I have an article called "Is Your Happy Life Slowly Killing You?" This is when I was powerlifting and doing CrossFit and playing gigs 5 nights a week. I was in a toxic relationship. I was drinking a lot of alcohol. All these things were happening when I went down to do ayahuasca and when I was researching ayahuasca for 1.5 years. So I came back and literally just was doing in the middle of a CrossFit workout, doing thrusters. And I threw the bar on the ground, looked down at the bar and said, this is stupid. Why am I doing this to my body? And I quit CrossFit that day. And I've never done CrossFit since. I've done CrossFit style workouts or whatever in my gym or whatever, but I've never stepped foot in a CrossFit gym again. Never done another CrossFit workout ever. Right? It was like, this is bad for my body. Effortlessly got out of a toxic relationship that I've been trying for a long time to get out of. Effortlessly gave up doing gigs that weren't serving me, certain bar gigs I didn't want to do anymore. Virtually quit all alcohol. The decisions that were very difficult before I went down to Peru were just seemingly effortless. It was really crazy. It was just like things that weren't serving me went away. And that was it. My positivity went through the roof. I started working more on Clovis, working less on music, admitting to myself that the music industry wasn't making me happy and not feeling guilty about that. Unbelievable. Now, and guys, remember, this is just my first trip. Like I have done way more work since then. I've done ayahuasca on multiple continents at this point. And then there's all the other psychedelics, some of which I think are actually more powerful. I would say if you want to Google Terence McKenna, Terrence, I believe, Mckenna, Terence McKenna, heroic dose. If you Google Terence McKenna heroic dose, he's talking about mushrooms, and that's the most impactful experience I've ever had in my life. That'll also give you an idea of how crazy I am because most people would never do this, ever. Yeah, most people are probably not in a place where that would be beneficial for them. It's quite an experience. Thing is, I can't just sit here and recommend psychedelics. Like for instance, there are some people like if you deal with like bipolar or multiple personality disorder or anything like that, like this can get real hairy really quick and you would need to talk to some serious professionals that know a lot more than I do before you want to go down that road. Now, Michael Pollan's book, How to Change Your Mind, will give you a great glimpse into this because what they're talking about is the depth of what's happening is really the default mode network. It is the ego. So the psychedelic experiences literally are meant to turn off the ego, turn off the default mode network. Essentially, you're seeing life like through the eyes of a 3-year-old. So they've done functional MRI scans on like a 3-year-old and an adult on psilocybin mushrooms, and it's quite similar. So what's happening is when you're a child, the default mode network, that ego is not built in yet. You guys don't understand this. All of your problems are ego. All of them are ego, period. You are the reason for your own problems, 100%. That's all there is to it. So you can actually turn that off in these states. So the way they explain it is with addiction, let's say, you're on the top of a ski slope, your skis are on the same track, you keep going down the same track, same track, same track. Addiction. You grind those skis so deep into the snow, you can't turn left or right. There's no way out. You're stuck in that addiction pathway, right? Psychedelics come along And it's as if they lay a fresh coat of powder across the whole mountain. Now you can twist, turn, go down different slopes. You can go anywhere you want, do anything that you want to do. Just kind of hit the hard reset button, right? So the one thing I will tell you is the deeper I've gone into this is that the world is absolutely a playground. And the deeper I've gone, the more meaningful the experiences I've had, the more I actually find simulation theory to be quite plausible. Because if you really look around, this is like a video game.